5, Robert Paris.
Here.
Division 4, George Lane.
Here.
Thank you. Division 1, Shelley Sourceable.
Here.
Division 3, Frank Donato. Division 2, Keith Dias.
Here.
Dwayne Chisam.
Here.
Attorney Jim Markman.
Here.
And Holly Hughes present.
Thank you. Item 3, do we have a motion to adopt tonight's agenda?
This is Shelley. I'll, make a motion to adopt the agenda.
This is Rob. I'll second that motion.
Do we have a roll call vote, please?
Gary Van Dam.
Yes.
Audrey Miller.
Yes.
Robert Paris.
Yes.
George Lane.
Yes.
Shelley Sourceable.
Yes.
Frank Donato.
Yes.
Keith Dias.
Yes, the measure passes. Thank you. Item 4, public comments and period open to the public. If anyone in the audience wishes to address the board on any item that's not on the agenda, please feel free to do so now. If there are no public comments, we'll move on to item 4A, voluntary public roll call. If any member of the public wishes to introduce themselves, please feel free to do so now.
Vincent Dino, Palmdale Water District.
Hello, Vince.
Please let the record show that John Joyce was here representing World News.
Welcome.
John Yucased.
Welcome.
Chad Reed.
Hello, Chad. Okay, we'll move on to item 5, new business. Items for consideration and possible action. 5A1, accept and file the 2020 annual water quality reports for Los Angeles County and Kern County. Do we have a presentation?
Yes, we do. Board President Dias, Jordan Ray will provide a presentation with regards to the annual water quality report.
Good evening, members of the board.
Having some technical difficulties here. There we go.
Okay, the 2020 annual water quality reports have been prepared for both Kern and Los Angeles counties. And then tonight I'll be going over some of the details for these. So first off, a little background. This requirement was mandated by the 1996 this requirement was mandated by the 1996 Safe Drinking Water Act amendments, and then the rule took effect in 1998. So this rule states that all community water systems must prepare and distribute a consumer competence report. Since we're a wholesaler, we aren't required to do a full CCR, which has more requirements than the annual water quality report. For example, it has to be prepared in multiple languages, and it also has to include historical data. CCRs must be completed and distributed by July 1st, and our customers use Avek's water quality data in their CCRs. So we try and prepare our report and get it out early to allow them extra time to complete theirs. Once the annual water quality report is completed, we send it out to our customers, and it's also made available on our website for easy access. And then finally, we're required to upload it to the State Water Resources Control Board drink portal. And so on the left-hand side here, it's a screenshot of our website. If you go to avec.org, you can find the reports under Your Water and then the Water Quality tab. So here are some of the water quality findings from the 2020 report. We had 0 positive routine bacteriological samples from the distribution system. 100% of our monthly samples met EPA turbidity performance standards. We satisfied the EPA groundwater rule for minimum chlorine residual leaving the clear well. And we met all state and federal requirements for regulated inorganic, volatile organic, and synthetic organic contaminants. Avec also satisfied the stage 2 disinfectants and disinfection byproducts rule by keeping THMs in the distribution system low. So this chart shows the locational running annual average for each site sampled quarterly in 2020. The highest running annual average at any site throughout the year was 58 micrograms per liter, and we finished the year with a maximum running annual average of 28 micrograms per liter in our Kern County system and 45 micrograms per liter in our Los Angeles County system. A detailed summary of all analytes and results for 2020 can be found inside the full reports included in your board packet. So this concludes my report. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Jordan?
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Jordan. That was an outstanding report. Very, very clear and easy to understand. Item number 6, consent calendar. Do I have a motion to approve the consent calendar?
This is Shelley. I'll make a motion to accept the consent calendar.
Keith, before you do that, you want to back up? There should have had a motion to accept and file the water quality report.
Oh, yes. Thank you very much, Jim.
Okay.
Do we have a motion to approve Board Order 5A1?
So moved. This is Shelley. This is Director Miller. I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussions or questions? Could we have a roll call vote, please?
Gary Van Dam,
Yes.
Audrey Miller,
Yes.
Robert Paris,
Yes.
George Lane,
Yes.
Shelley Sorsable,
Yes.
Frank Donato,
Yes.
Keith Dice.
Yes, the measure passes. Thank you. Now going back to item 6, the consent calendar. I believe Shelley made a motion to approve the consent calendar.
Yes, I did.
Do we have a second?
Keith, this is Rob. I'll second that motion.
Thanks, Rob. Any more discussion? Could we have a roll call vote, please?
Gary Van Dam,
Yes.
Audrey Miller,
Yes.
Robert Paris,
Yes.
George Lane,
Yes.
Shelley Sorsable,
Yes.
Frank Donato,
Yes.
Keith Dice.
Yes, the measure carried. Thank you. Item number 7A, new projects funding source and grants committee. Dwayne, do we have a report?
Yes, we do. Board President Dias, a member of the board. Tonight for your consideration is a 6-month extension of the Townsend Public Affairs consultant contract. We do have a PowerPoint presentation and a presentation by Townsend.
Can you speak in the mic, please?
Yes. Can you raise it up? There you go. So let's see. So Townsend Public Affairs is here to provide a a PowerPoint presentation with regards to their successes and challenges that that occurred during their 2 years with the agency. And I'd like to turn it over to Townsend Public Affairs for their presentation, and then following that, I'll have one slide to describe the contract extension. With that, Christopher or Eric, would you like to make your presentation?
Yeah, this is Christopher. I just want to start off and thank you for the opportunity. And Eric, if you could go through the presentation, that would be great.
You got it. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Perfect, thank you. I was having some Zoom issues earlier, so I just wanted to confirm that we're all good. Okay. Good evening, Board of Directors, members of the board. Eric O'Donnell with Townsend Public Affairs. Thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight to present to you about what we've been working on and what we plan on working on, should we be grateful enough to consider our work with the district. Next slide, please. A little bit of an agenda that we'll go through each of these individually, but I just wanted to make sure that we saw it in totality at once. We will go over legislative advocacy and what we've been doing on that front. I will touch a little bit on what we've been doing with the state water contractors and in coordination with their legislative advocates. And then I will go into the work we've been doing on the traditional grant writing side and the funding opportunity side, trying to get the agency money. And I'll also touch very briefly on the hazard mitigation plan and where the status is on that with the agency. I know we've talked about that in the past. And then I'll get into, I'll close with some, making sure that we all can see what we've been doing on the COVID-19 front and give you a flavor of what we've been sending to the district. And then finish off with some relationship building statistics and some accomplishments that we've been able to gain since then. So next slide, please. So on legislative advocacy, which is part of our contract with the district, with the agency, we provide reports and matrices monthly and even more often as needed to the agency staff. We are always tracking several dozen bills in Sacramento. We've taken several positions in the last couple of years on bills in Sacramento. 2020 was obviously a little bit of a change due to COVID-19 and the shortened legislative session. But we hope to get back on track in 2021 with bill positions in Sacramento and making sure that we're advocating and taking positions as needed on legislation. As a reminder, we did coordinate advocacy trips for the agency that the board chair at the time and the general manager attended in Sacramento and Washington, D.C. We had over 18 really well done meetings with various members and stakeholders across different agencies and legislative offices that we've ever since been engaged in diligent follow-up with those offices to ensure that our priorities and policies that were presented in those meetings are being followed up upon. And then I mentioned, and we'll get into it a little bit later, some state water project and state water contractors work that we've been doing as well. Next slide, please. We also sent every year since we've been with the agency, we make sure that the agency fills out federal appropriations request letters. So what that is it's the first chance that the agency has to weigh in on federal funding programs and funding levels for priority programs. Those letters are drafted and sent to your legislators right now, Senator Dianne Feinstein and Alex Padilla, as well as Kevin McCarthy and Mike Garcia. We are making sure that those levels of funding are either consistent with what they have been or increased from the year prior. So all of the funding and priorities that we included, I believe we included even more. But those are any of the programs that you currently access for funding or you can access for funding. So we want to make sure those funding levels at the federal level during the committee's appropriations process are as high as possible in case they get negotiated down lower during the process. So that includes SRF funding from the feds that transfers down to the state. That includes WIFIA funding, which is a funding source at the federal level that we've talked about in the past. That includes WIN Act grants that we'll talk about a little bit later. Any Bureau of Reclamation Water Smart grant funding that we've applied to in the past and will apply to in the future. And again, some more FEMA pre-disaster mitigation program funding. So we want to make sure that all of those levels are as high as possible. So we did receive signed letters back from the agency. We have delivered those letters and gotten receipt for them from your representatives. They are very appreciative of those letters. When they are talking to committee staff and appropriation staff, it is literally what they use in front of them to justify their request to the staff of committees about funding. Next slide, please. A 6-month work plan. This is what we were related to the legislative advocacy. This is what we're proposing to work on for the next 6 months. And we'll get into it. And I will mention that everything else in our contract is obviously included in that 6 months, but this is just what we're focused on. We'll talk a little bit later about the WIN Act and about what happened with our SNP Phase 2 project with the finding of feasibility. But in the interim, in the 6 months, we want to work on extending the WIN Act, which expires at the end of 2021, as you know. We want to work on adjusting the criteria of the WIN Act to make sure that our project would better qualify for that funding and qualify for the reimbursement of that funding. And we want to work with Congressman Garcia and Congressman Valadeo, who have both introduced bills that extend the WIN Act. Congressman Garcia's bill actually allocates additional funding for the WIN Act, whereas Congressman Valadeo's bill simply extends the WIN Act out 10 years. So we really want to work with those authors and work with the delegation and work with leadership to ensure that the WIN Act is not only extended, which would be a win, but also the funding is additional funding is allocated as well to complement the extension of the WIN Act. So we want to leverage those existing relationships, like I mentioned in the previous slide, with all those meetings that we did in Washington, D.C. To make sure that this happens. And then I'll talk about this in the next couple slides, but follow up on the drought response program with the WIN Act that we have applied for, that we have an update on, that requires a little bit more waiting and work to do. Continue to work on the climate change and resiliency bond at the state level. So we've mentioned it in the past. There is a climate change and resiliency bond working its way through the legislature at the state level. That's SB 45 or AB 1500, depending on what house you're in. We want to make sure that there are pots of money in that bond that AVEC is qualified for and can apply for. If you remember, in previous versions of the bond before the pandemic, we were able to work with your legislators to help craft language that we were hoping to get included in the bond. Those bonds never made it to the finish line, so that language was never ultimately included. But we want to make sure that when this bond does, that our language is ready to go, dusted off, and has the support of your legislators who did pledge their support for the measure should the language get amended in, which is a good start. So we want to continue to work with those stakeholders, continue to work with those proponents for the bond to make sure that there's money in there for AVEC projects. Special district advocacy for COVID-19 relief funding. As you know, President Biden signed in a major federal spending stimulus package. That package allocated a lot of money to local entities, states and local governments. However, special districts did not receive direct money from that. We were able to include special districts as an eligible subrecipient of that money. We worked hard for that on behalf of all of our special district clients. So what that means is other folks who did get money can give that money to special districts as part of an eligible use of that fund. So what we're working on now is advocating at the state level for the state to distribute some of their funds that they got from the federal government through the American Rescue Plan to special districts to provide some COVID-19 relief funding. Whatever costs that the district or any districts would have incurred from COVID-19, whether it's staffing costs, overtime costs, working from home costs, PPE costs, any of those maybe minor, but might be adding up costs that were, that were mandated on the agency. We want to make sure that we're able to be reimbursed for that. So we're working on an advocacy campaign for that at the state level, and we'll definitely make sure that AVEC is included in any of those conversations going forward. And then we want to work with congressional members on your earmark request. Next slide, please. I promised we would talk about the state water contractors a little bit more. Just very briefly, I'm personally on Zoom calls with the state water contractors and their legislative advocates to talk about various funding priorities, funding proposals for the state water project that would benefit all downstream users, including the water bond. So there is a coalition of folks for the state water contractors that TPA is very ingrained in and involved in, led by Kathy Cole, who does the work for them. So we are a part of that. We participate in those efforts. We provide notes back to staff. We monitor calls on behalf of staff and make sure that they're informed with everything going on with the legislative advocates and of the state water contractors. Next slide. And then to the WIN Act, I know we've talked about this for well over a year now. To update the full board, what our status is right now is we did not receive a feasibility determination before the statutory deadline of January 1, 2021. So WIN Act money expires at the end of 2021. In order to be eligible for the money, you have to get a feasibility determination from the Secretary of the Interior by January 1, 2021. So all last year, that's what we were working toward. That's what we were hoping to get before January 1, 2021. But we were not, we did not receive that finding before that deadline. So despite back and forth communication with the Bureau that I know the board knows about, we've sent them a lot of supplemental information that they've asked for. We've sent them even information that they didn't ask for in terms of information we were able to gather from our advocacy efforts with Congressman Garcia. As you know, he came to the board, did a tour, and was able to give us some great information about his conversations with the Bureau and his advocacy on this project. We followed that up and submitted supplemental information, and still there was not enough time to get that, or was not chosen to get that feasibility determination before the deadline of January 1. So on the next slide, we'll get into a next step there for this funding. So next step, continue to work with their staff to receive that determination in the interim. What's interesting about the Section 4007 fund, which is the specific fund that we were going after in the WIN Act, is that $46 million still remains in that fund. So there's more money than projects left in terms of those that got a feasibility determination. So the way it pans out, that $46 million is not going to be spent unless the WIN Act is reauthorized and extended. They cannot spend it. There is no other projects that received that determination. So what our plan is, and the next step is to continue to work with the Bureau staff to receive information and comments on our supplemental information that we submitted. To date, they've been kind of slow at responding, and I would say cagey in their information that they're sharing when it comes to their opinions on our supplemental information and their opinions on our assumptions on federal benefits and regional benefits of the project. So we're working with them to really unlock where we can help get that information and that data back from the Bureau would be a good start. And that's, utilizing your representatives, your relationship with the representatives, both your senators and Congressman Garcia as well, to really try to get the Bureau to respond in a better fashion when it comes to trying to get the feasibility determination prior to the extension or during the extension of the WIN Act, so that we're able to be better positioned for that remaining money or for any new money that is on the horizon with any extension. Next slide, please. The Bureau of Reclamation's Water Smart Drought Response Program. So we submitted a grant application for the Eastside Water Bank Expansion Project to the Bureau of Reclamation in August of last year. So this is their drought response program. It was due in August. We requested $1.5 million for the Eastside Water Bank Expansion Project. And kind of a tricky situation occurred after that I've never seen in my years, and a lot of congressional offices haven't seen either. In February, they released the awards for that grant program. Avek was not on the list, so I called over to the contact at the Water Smart Drought Response Program. Standard operating procedure for us is if we're not awarded any funding, we try to get on the phone or Zoom with them as soon as possible to debrief on why that funding wasn't chosen for us, and find out ways that we can improve on the next go around. Because a lot of this funding, this is very traditional grant funding. A lot of this funding is cyclical and comes back every year at the federal level. So we want to make sure that we're best positioned. So during that initial inquiry from me, the program officer said that they have no record of Avek applying for the funding. So I sent them the receipt that we got when we applied, and they sat on it. And a couple of weeks later, Dwayne got a letter from the agency that said, we found your application. It did not receive adequate review from our district. We misplaced it on our end and didn't include it in our review packet. So what we're going to do to make this right, because we know this isn't fair to you, is we're going to do a private review of the application within 45 days. And in accordance with our existing policies, we will let you know of a decision that they've made within 45 days, whether or not it will be funded or not. So very strange situation. Like I said, haven't seen it happen before, but positive that, at least I think it's positive that the Bureau is taking ownership of it and is doing their best to give us a fair, transparent review process that all the other projects got. Personally, I think that should it get to a point where it has credits and merits that are equal to other projects that were funded, I think they can find the money to fund it. Should it receive that that level of point award or review, if you will, from the Bureau. So we're crossing our fingers there. We're less than 30 days away now from that determination. So we'll definitely keep the board up to date on that. Next slide, please. Again, I'll just be very brief on this. We did, as you know, we were awarded funds for a hazard mitigation grant program for the agency. The agency has issued an RFP and selected a consultant to work on that local hazard mitigation plan. Once that local hazard mitigation plan gets finalized by the board, it will have several additional projects, additional suggested mitigation procedures. Then we can start applying to additional funding at the federal and state level to fulfill those mitigation projects. So until then, we're waiting for the local hazard mitigation plan to be adopted. But this could, depending on timing, it could be something that we're submitting applications for this year. Next slide, please. I mentioned COVID-19 updates. Since March of 2020, we've provided almost daily and definitely weekly COVID-19 updates to staff. So these updates include all the critical information from DC and Sacramento. So what we noticed at the beginning of the pandemic was that information was kind of like drinking through a fire hose of all of the COVID-19 information that was coming down from the state and the feds. How do you organize it? How do you understand what's eligible for you, what's not? So we really took it upon ourselves to try to make sure that we bridge that information gap for the agency to really make sure that all of the critical information from the COVID-19 updates at the state and federal level were shared. So what that is we shared information on how to access FEMA reimbursement funding that you were allowed to access for any costs related to COVID-19. We shared all the information regarding new human resources laws, whether it's family leave requirements, sick leave you had to give employees. Every agency had to change their policies and award extra time off for those employees with sick family members or sick themselves. The governor's executive orders. There was a flurry of executive orders at the state level from Governor Newsom changing protocols regarding public meetings. Right now, we're still operating into an executive order when it comes to being able to meet via Zoom as opposed to in person. So we gave all the information on those as well as any workplace guidelines and safety protocols that were passed through by public health departments or through the governor's office. So we've been in daily communication with you guys on that because we're in daily communication with Congress and with departmental staff in DC and Sacramento, constantly making sure that we have the right information, constantly making sure we're getting updates so that we can share that with you in a timely manner. Next slide, please. And then finally, I'll end on relationship building. So I think together we've had a lot of great accomplishments in this realm. I think we've built a lot of key relationships. Some of those members, depending on their status, are no longer there, but I think there's a lot of strong relationships that we have built with your state delegation, your congressional delegation, as well as agency representatives and staff at all levels, based on our individual follow-ups from our Sacramento and Washington, D.C. meetings. And I think we've already seen dividends pay off on some of these relationships. Congressman Garcia, as you all know, during the tour, let us know that he spoke with one of the deputy commissioners of the Bureau, specifically about the SNP Phase 2 project and the Section 4007 funding. Because of that conversation, we were able to glean additional supplemental information needs from the Bureau, and we're able to turn around and submit that shortly after that meeting. So we were able to work through Congressman Garcia's office to get that tip. Congressman T.J. Cox, a member that we met with in in Washington, D.C., who does not represent the district, sent a letter of support on our behalf to the Secretary of the Interior regarding our SNP Phase 2 project, because he saw the benefits that it would have to his district when it comes to additional water storage, additional water flexibility in the South. He's in the Central Valley area of California. So we were able to get a letter of support from him in order to help move the needle on the Secretary's finding of feasibility for the Section 4007 money. And then as part of our work with the agency, through the WIN Act, we got a letter of support, as you know, from the California Water Commission and the Governor Newsom himself regarding SNP Phase 2 and the benefits it would have to California. So we were able to include that in our project package. But all of these are successes regarding our relationships that we've been able to build because of your board, because of your staff, because of the trips to Sacramento and DC. And then, like I said earlier in the WIN Act Next Steps slide, we have staff working on our behalf at the Bureau right now who understand that we have not gotten the information that we deserve back from the Bureau regarding our project. So they're working with us to try to work with their policy staff to try to get as much additional details to us so that we're better able to utilize our time preparing for the WIN Act extension and additional money. So with that, I'll stop talking and answer any questions that the board may have.
Any questions for Eric?
I not for Eric, but I do have a question because I see it's on here for a board order, and I was under the impression this was going to the committee to discuss further before it came to the board.
Director Donato, it did go to the committee before it came to the board.
And what did the committee recommend?
Frank, this is Rob. It went to our committee twice, and our committee has recommended approval of the board order.
Good, because I don't approve it. I'm so disappointed in the group. It's amazing. They promised we were going to get that money, and he talks like he's doing 100-mile-an-hour things, and we're getting hardly any money. The money that cost us a lot. That cost us more money to go after the SNP money, and we've done everything we possibly could. We were assured there was a 90% chance we were going to get that money, and they could come with this cock and baloney. Oh, we misplaced your frickin' application? That's a frickin' insult.
Hey, Frank, that was a different program, not the SNP program, where the application got misplaced.
Well, he's talking so fast. Which one was he talking about?
That was the East Side Water Bank. Smart.
Well, so basically they just could misplaced that. Anyway, I'm not supporting it. I'm not supporting the group. They haven't done that much for us as far as I'm concerned. And, if the committee wants to make that recommendation, that's fine. But I have not seen anything. But I'm going to tell you that SNP thing really irks me to no end when it was primarily a support of the Edwards Air Force Base, and I just don't understand and won't ever understand. That should have been a slam dunk for the little money to build that line for the security and the well-being of the Antelope Valley to support that base to make sure they have a primary source of water is absolutely ludicrous.
Yes, Director Donato, I have one slide. I'm not saying it's going to change your mind, but just to complete the staff report, I would like to present that at this time if that is appropriate. Yes, the item here is as you know, our current agreement with Townsend Public Affairs ended on March 1st. Their monthly fee was $6,500 per month, and so at this point, for a 6-month extension, they have agreed to do this work that has been outlined here for $1,000 per month, primarily because they understand and have indicated that they know they have some unfinished work to do for a total contract amount of $6,000, and it can be canceled at any time with 7 days written notice by either party. So I just wanted to make sure that I completed the staff report for the board as far as consideration goes.
Well, wait, Dwayne. I remember asking for the total cost of the SNP line, how much money we spent, and how we had to go back and do a new CEQA document per the Corps of Engineer. Now, well, where's that money? How much did we spend? We spent more money on that thing than they've been.
Yes.
But then they've been all together all the years on that thing.
Yes, we've spent a considerable amount of money.
Because how much, Dwayne? I want to know how much we spent on this project, and they were the ones telling us that it looked like it was a slam dunk. I want to know how much it was.
We spent about $200,000.
Yeah. More money than they've been practically been working for us.
I got a comment as George. George. Contacts with the Congressman's office.
George, I need you to go up to the podium. They can't hear you.
Won't be able to hear you.
This is George. Contacts with the Congressman's office. Have you been able to speak directly with the Congressman yet, or has it been through staff?
I'm sorry, was that conversation? I didn't hear that. Was that directed at us?
Have you been able to speak with the Congressman yet, or has it been through staff?
It's been through the Congressman himself. We've met with him a couple of different times in person, and he's been to the district for a tour that we were there. I believe all of the board was there for that, and he sat with us and answered questions and met with us. I know Christopher has also connected with him multiple times via phone and via Zoom about that as well. But yeah, it's through himself directly.
One thing I wanted to add about Congressman, board member Donato raises the excellent point, which is it is ludicrous that there's no credit given for Edwards Air Force Base to score on this application. And the feedback we were getting is they would not, and Congressman Garcia puts the same issue. And the DOR has taken the position that that factor cannot be considered. So what we're doing in Garcia doing this bill is one of the things we're going to put in there is that Edwards Air Force Base and similar facilities like that can be counted towards the credit for scoring and supporting the application. So that's what's going to be happening with the extension of the program, because they still have the $46 million. They've asked us to hang in there, and we've been jamming them. But I think that's with Mike, if we can get that tweak in, then we get the credit for Edwards Air Force Base, and we think we could put that over the top. I've talked to Senator Alex Padilla, gave him a basic briefing. I said I'm going to need him to weigh in as well from the Senate side, pushing on this, and I've got his support to do that. So,
and then also Dan Flory, as you know, very familiar with the agency and the DWR process or agency as a whole. Their total fee is $75,000 even, but again, they could not propose on those tasks I mentioned because of conflicts. And then the last proposal was from Westwater Research. As you know, Westwater, Matt Payne is the principal there. He's been working with the agency for a number of years, helped us significantly with the High Desert Water Bank. in structuring that deal with Metropolitan Water District. Their primary location is Phoenix, Arizona. Been around about 20 years. They have no conflicts because this is really what they do as an agency or as a firm. They have a lot of experience, also successfully marketed some Montecito Water District surplus water just within the last year, and are proposing a similar process that they use with that sale. And let's see, I mentioned that, and that their total fee is $134,000 with no conflicts. So here's a summary of the three proposals, quite a range, as you can see. With that, after reviewing this with the committee, both the committee and staff are recommending the board accept the proposal from Westwater Research in the not to exceed amount of $134,000 and authorize the agency GM to execute the professional service agreement, which is attached to the staff report in your packet for completing this work on behalf of the agency. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Matt? Hearing none, do I have a motion?
This is Shelley. I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
This is Rob. I'll second the motion.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Could we have a roll call vote, please?
Gary Van Dam,
Yes.
Audrey Miller,
Yes.
Robert Paris,
Yes.
George Lane, Shelley Sourceable,
Yes.
Frank Donato,
Yes.
Keith Dice.
Yes, the measure passes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That concludes my report.
Thank you. Good report, Shelley. Item 7C, Adjudication Watermaster Committee. Rob, do you have a report?
Yes, Matt's going to, I think, go over the agenda and ask for or provide information for us.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director Paris. So included in your board packet on page 190 is the agenda for tomorrow morning's Watermaster meeting. And there's just one, you can go through the agenda for tomorrow, pretty standard stuff. But I wanted to just point out item E, 8E, which is transfer applications. Just wanted to mention that there is a transfer on the Watermaster agenda between WDS California 2 and AVAC. This is the transfer of the 1,087 acre feet that the board approved under a term sheet that the agency is buying or purchasing from WDS California 2, also known as Homer. And what this will do is officially move that 1,087 acre feet from the Willow Springs water bank to AVAC's West Side water bank. So that's the only item on the agenda that has to do with AVAC, but would be happy to answer any questions the board may have on any of those items.
Any questions? Are we ready for a motion?
No
I
motion.
don't think we need a motion, Director or Dias.
Okay.
Yep.
If there's no more discussion, thank you for the presentation. Thank you. Now, item 8, General Manager's Report. Dwayne?
Yes, Board President Dias, members of the board. This is the General Manager's Report for March 23rd, 2021. The Northern California forecast looks bleak. We don't anticipate any significant storms. There was a water meeting and a hydrology and meteorological update, and it looks like the next 3 months are going to be hot and warm and very dry. Here's our precipitation for the year, and you can see here that March hasn't done about half of what it should happen on an average year. So you can see we're still well below, and the prospects for April, May, and June look pretty bleak. Here's here's where we're at right here. We're right at 22.3 inches. The lowest on record is 19, so we're not very much higher than that. And as you can see, we're going to come in at probably one of the driest years in record. And just to recall, 51.8 inches is the average. Here's the infamous drought. And you can see very severe drought, and then it goes into an exceptional drought, and then you go into a severe drought, and then you just go into a moderate drought. So in essence, we're all under a drought. Reservoir levels are pretty low. Here's Lake Oroville at 40% of total capacity, 50% of where we should be. And San Luis is 63% and 56% moving forward. And then give you an idea, these are all the years of where the reservoir levels are in Oroville, and you can see the various years, the wet years and the dry years. We're right in this location here. It looks pretty bad. And then here's once again, here's our San Luis Reservoir conditions, where we're at there. Closer to home, we have we're running about 13 to 15 million gallons a day through the Quartz Hill plant. And the East Side Water Bank is doing between 0.8 and 1 million gallon a day, and our Acton at 0.6 to 0.4. And so total combination between 16 and 14 million gallons a day. So we're moving up a little bit, but not too much at the present time. As far as geopurification, once again, we're flowing at the east side 1.4, 9.5. On the west side location in our bench ranch is 1.3. So you got 12.2 million gallons a day coming from the well field. And our recovery wells, we're not doing, we just have a couple of acre feet a day that's going into the east side water bank, and we're pumping that right back out. So. But that's what we have there, and that's for THM control. Water quality was, as Jordan indicated, we've been maintaining our THM levels real low, and we continue to do that. All of our annual water quality reports are complete. Operation and maintenance, we're finishing up the Phillips Lab station and our maintenance projects for 2020. You can see we've actually got this station, pump station was tested, both about 3 acre feet of water was flushed through the system, and we're continuing with a hypochlorite installation. We're anticipating that all of our treatment chemicals will get proposals back from 4/5/21. And then Miracle Construction that was awarded a contract to remove our spent coagulant as trying to get that done by the end of the month. In addition, we have a 480 volt to 4160 volt step-up transformer. It's what it looks like here. And in the event of a power outage, our two portable 500 kW generators can power this transfer and pump water up to the Acton plant. It's a pretty neat accomplishment in emergency preparedness. COVID-19, we continue to follow the protocols, and we've had no new confirmed cases of COVID-19. And many of our staff have been able to get vaccines, at least the first one. And as soon as more vaccines become available as essential workers, they're higher on the list for the vaccine. Wanted to add that as far as our events and schedules, the AV Water Master meeting is tomorrow and Easter Sunday. My schedule is I'll be in the office this week and next week, but I will be taking a week off to visit my daughter in Portland the first full week in April. And I do want to, although it's not I don't have a slide for this, we did receive word that the water allocation, received this word at 4 o'clock today that the water allocation has reduced from 10% to 5%. So I think, Shelley, you were a prophet last meeting where you asked about if it went down to 5%. We are meeting as a staff, and we'll be able to meet, we're confident we'll be able to meet all of our customer requests this year for water supplies. However, I'm more concerned about next year because we'll be using most of our carryover water in that table A this year. So we'll have a limited amount of carryover water that's available. So staff will be working on how best to work through the next 4 to 6 months to make sure that we're prepared properly for the following year in case it too is a very dry year. More to come on that as we get to know more. That concludes my report. Be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions for Dwayne? Thank you, Dwayne. We'll move on to item 9, directors' reports. Do any directors have any reports for the board? If there are none, we'll move on to item 10, attorney's report. Jim?
Yes, Keith, members of the board, will get a chance to formally and very happily report to you that the last 2 appeals in the Court of Appeal of the Antelope Valley water adjudication went our way, and the Tapia and, more importantly, the Willis class appeals had the judgment affirmed in both cases without exception. We got 2 opinions. We had a wonderful 85-page opinion in the case we worked on for the Willis appeal. And I hope we have just a very short closed session on that to get some direction from the board on next steps this evening. But basically what happens now is we think Willis will try to petition for a hearing in the California Supreme Court after filing 400 pages of briefs in the appellate court. It's hard for us to believe he wouldn't take, Ralph Galfian, their lawyer, wouldn't take that last swing to try to get some relief out of the Supreme Court. So we think that's coming one way or the other. We do not think Tapia will appeal. So other than the Supreme Court venture that's probably going to be happen with Willis, the case is all over on the merits. There's still some attorney's fees appeals floating in and out, but Avek is not exposed to any attorney's fees with either the Willis class or the small pumper class. So we'll wait. We'll see. Once this judgment becomes final, then that 60 days, within 60 days, we'll find out whether Galfian is going to try to take it to the Supreme Court. But it's very, very good news. It was an exciting opinion, did a couple of things that I'd like to talk in closed session about. The opinion is ordered not to be published, and that's what I want to talk to you about. But we're very, very happy with the result.
Any questions for Jim? Hearing none, we're moving on to item 11. Do we have any requests for future agenda items? Okay, now we're ready for potential closed session. Dwayne, which items do we want to discuss in closed session?
Just item A, very short closed session.
Okay, do I have a motion? We go into closed session for item 12A.
This is Rob. I move we go into closed session on item 12A.
Thank you.
This is Shelley. I'll second it.
Thank you. Roll call vote, please.
Gary Van Dam,
Yes.
Audrey Miller,
Yes.
Robert Paris,
Yes.
George Lane, Shelley Sourceable,
Yes.
Frank Donato,
Yes.
Keith Dias.
Yes. Okay, we're going into closed session as soon as Holly can switch us over.
Okay, stand by.